What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Payne. Welcome back to another Honkai Star Rail video. Alright guys, going back to the basics. A lot of you have never played a game like this before, and many of you have, but I want to take my time and go back to show you guys what the game is all about, teach you guys about some of the stats that you're going to be expecting in the game, how to get certain characters, the mechanics in the game, going back to the basics essentially, so you guys can better prepare yourself for day one and how to play the game more efficiently. Alright, so first thing I want to note is the actual game itself. So there are two different parts of this game. Honkai Star Rail has overworld, which is essentially open world map where you run around, encounter items, bosses, mobs, etc. And then of course there's the battle sequence where you actually engage in an enemy and battle them. So those are the two main things in the game. The characters themselves, there are two ways to really get characters. One is through the warp, which is the summoning system, or the raid up banner, and then the other one is some characters will be available free via in-game missions or events or completing achievements. So let's talk about some of the stats of the characters you'll see. The very basic ones, of course, are going to be HP, which is your health points, how much damage a character can take before they fall in combat. Attack, how much damage a character deals. Defense reduces the damage a character takes. Speed determines how fast and how often a character will act in battle. These are all very similar mechanics in most RPGs. Crit rate, how likely you can land a crit. Crit damage determines the multiplier when you do land a crit. Break effect, now this is something new maybe to some of you. Enhances weakness break effects, the amount of damage dealt upon it. The amount of damage dealt by dots per turn, and also how far an enemy's actions are delayed. So break effect has quite a few different things to it. So these are very good things to know, especially if you play a dot character or a character who is built to break. This effect here is going to be very important to you. Outgoing healing boost determines the amount of healing done by the character's healing abilities. Energy restoration rate determines how fast a character charges energy for their ultimate ability. Effect hit rate determines how likely a character is to apply a debuff on the enemy. Effect resist determines how difficult it is for the enemy to apply a debuff on the character. Elemental damage boost determines the damage multiplier for skills and attacks that deal elemental damage. Note that there are 7 different elements in the game, we'll go through those as well, and each element has its own separate elemental damage boost stat. Okay, and lastly, elemental resist boost, of course, reducing the elemental damage a character takes from the enemy. Okay, all right, so let's talk about the elements and paths. So 7 elements in the game: physical, pretty straightforward; fire, ice, lightning, wind, quantum, and imaginary. Now you can probably guess some of these are more powerful than others. Some of them have more effects on one another. So for example, like fire versus ice, lightning versus wind, quantum versus energy, they probably have a role to play. Like one is stronger than the other. So if you use the right characters, you'll do more damage. You'll probably have better break effects, etc. Right? So keep that in mind. There's also something called paths. So this is a little different. So these are 7 paths in the game, essentially giving you the role of the character. So the first one is Destruction, which is a general DPS, whether that's AoE or single target. It can be a mix of both. There's Hunt, which is the single target DPS. There's Erudition, which is multiple target DPS, so AoE damage. There's Harmony, which is offensive utility support, so it does offensive damage as well as provide utility. There's Nihility, which is a debuffer, so someone who does dots or someone who does like slow down or attack down, etc. on enemies. There's Preservation, which is your defensive support and your tank. And lastly, there's Abundance, which is your healer. All right, so those are the different levels of class. So when you get a unit, you're like, what does this mean? You can refer back to this and kind of see what these units represent based on their actual paths. All right, moving on to the character skills. So there are 5 different abilities that define a player style, okay? So first one is the basic attack, and essentially that is an auto attack and is available during the use of combat. It's generally the weakest attack of a character and their abilities, but is your main source of generating something called skill points, a resource that is needed to activate a character's actual skill ability. All right, a skill. Skill is a combat ability that a character can use with effects ranging from dealing damage to providing buffs to your allies. Skill ability has no cooldown and instead requires you to expend skill points in order to use it, which you build from your basic attacks. Alright, go into ultimate, which is what probably everybody wants to know. An ultimate is generally the strongest combat ability. To use the ultimate ability, it must be charged through certain combat actions such as attacking or defeating an enemy. It must be recharged after each use. Alright, keep that in mind, guys. Alright, talent. Talent is the character's passive abilities. Generally takes form of a conditional effect where the talent will provide some kind of benefit to the character or allies if these conditions are met. Alright? And then lastly, technique. Unlike the rest of the character's abilities, technique is an overworld ability, so a map ability, rather than a combat ability, and is used before combat begins. Depending on the character using it, will either initiate combat with a special attack or provide a buff prior to engaging the enemy. All right, so those are the different methods of actual character skill. So keep that in mind when somebody refers to these. Now you'll know what they mean. All right, character progression, guys. This is probably one that you guys all want to know about and how it works. So upgrading your character in Honkai will enhance their combat capabilities, allowing you to challenge and overcome the more difficult content within the game. The main ways for a character to grow are as follows: increasing character level, upgrading the character's traces, unlocking the character's eidolons, equipping light cones, and equipping relics. And we're going to go through each one of these, okay? So each character in Honkai Star Rail has a character level ranging from 1 to 80 and additional stats as they level up. So they'll gain additional stats, sorry. It's very common in RPGs. Once a character reaches a certain level milestone, they will need to be ascended in order to increase the level further. Very similar to what Genshin Impact currently does, right? Characters start with the base max level of 20. Each time a character ascends, they can increase their cap by another 10 to a maximum of 80. To ascend a character, you also need to gather these materials from a place called the Crawling Shadow Bosses and enemies within the overworld, so the map. Also note that Trailblazer level, which is your account level, will also determine how many times you can ascend a character. Even if you have all the required ascension materials, you will not be able to send a character past a certain level unless your actual account has the appropriate Trailblaze level. So keep that in mind. Trailblaze means your account level, okay? All right, traces. So these are going to be your skill upgrade tree. So this is something that you guys can look at and when you get your character and kind of focus on which path you want to go. But traces are a skill upgrade tree that character has. Unlocking and upgrading the various nodes in a character's trace will provide them with stat bonuses, extra passive abilities, and enhancements to their 5 skills. Traces can be upgraded by using material found in Cocoon of Distortion as mission rewards or purchased in the shop. Also note that the ability to upgrade traces is tied to your character's ascension, so you'll need to level your character up first before upgrading the traces. Alright, eidolons. So they enhance characters' abilities or provide them with new passive bonuses. Each has 6, so very similar to Genshin. These are essentially getting dupes of your characters through the gacha system or through the in-game and events. The only exception to this is your main character, so the MC. You can obtain their upgrades via in-game missions and Trailblaze level account rewards, which is going to be achievements essentially for leveling up. Okay, so the main character, you'll be able to get these maxed out just from playing the game. Alright, light cones. Light cones are a type of equipment that all characters can equip. They're equivalent of weapons in other games and provide stat bonuses to the equipped character. Similar to characters, light cones have level ranging from 1 to 80, and they can be leveled and ascended as well. Doing so will increase the stat bonus that provide to the equipped character. Each light cone has a light cone ability, which is a passive bonus that is tied to one of the 7 paths. And we talked about those paths. That's like the destruction, the perseverance, etc. So essentially your class that your character is. A light cone ability starts at rank 1 and can be upgraded to rank 5 by using the superimpose function. To use superimpose function, you need duplicate light cones essentially. So just like characters, you can dupe it, right, and get your stars up. And then these are the kind of things that you can do here, right? So these are some of the passive examples there for this one. This is called Collapsing Sky. All right, and then all light cones can be equipped to any character. However, only characters of light cones corresponding path will be able to use the light cone ability. So you have to equip the path of the light cone to the path of the unit. It has to match for the abilities to be able to be used, and it's not just a stat upgrade, okay? And there's a list of light cones here, so you can check it out on Prydwen. All right, relics. These are essentially your equipment. So there's head, hand, body, feet, planar sphere, and link rope. Each of them have the following stats. Head has flat HP, hands have flat attack, body has the following: HP percent, attack, defense, crit rate, crit damage, outgoing heal boost, or effect rate. These are RNG. Feet have HP, attack, defense, break effect, and speed. Again, RNG. Planar effect has HP percent, attack speed, attack percent, defense percent, and elemental damage boost. And lastly, link rope has HP, attack, defense, break effect, energy regen rate. Again, all of these are all RNG based on what you get drops. Note that elemental damage boost will be one of the 7 possible elements. It is not all elemental damage boost. So that's a good note. There's a little asterisk there for you guys to know that, okay? And there's a list of all of the relics and the sets you can get. And then lastly, guys, exploration. As you go through the map, you'll see towns, you'll see NPCs, you'll see missions, you'll see quests. You can pick them up and do them as you go along. And also, entering into combat, you essentially want to use a basic attack or a technique ability to get the 1-up on your enemy. If not, and you get In an ambush state, you actually go into a weakened state where the enemy does first turn and more damage on you based on their element, and you don't want to get into that situation. So pre-combat, a couple things I just want to talk about real quick. So like I mentioned, essentially you want to use a basic attack or a technique attack before they make contact. This will enter the combat in an ambush state. In this state, the enemy will get to act before you do, as I mentioned. But if you do it first, you have the advantage on the enemy. You get to attack first, plus you can get them in weakened state, doing more damage to them as you go along. So that's essentially it, guys. The weakness break, I guess I'll touch on this real quick. There is a way to break enemies' bars. So the way to do it is, for anyone who's physical, bleed deals additional physical damage and apply the bleed effect once they break. For fire, you do burn, deals additional fire damage and applies the burn effect, which is a dot. Ice, you freeze the enemy, preventing it from taking any action, applying an ice dot. Lightning, a shock, deals additional lightning damage and applies the shock effect. Wind shear, deals additional wind damage and applies the wind shear effect, which is a wind dot. Quantum entanglement, applies the entanglement effect, pushes the enemy back into the turn order, and dealing quantum dot, which is really good. And then last one is imaginary, which is imprisonment, applies the imprisonment effect, pushes the enemy back in order turn, and reduces the enemy's speed. So this one's the only non-dot, okay? While broken, the enemy's toughness remains at 0, and further attacks of an element that is weak, enemy is weak against, will have no additional effects on it. Broken enemy will recover from its broken state on its next turn. Its toughness will also be replenished to full, and its weakness can be broken again. Alright guys, so weaken effects is going to play a major part in this game, so keep an eye on that and understand which elements go against which ones and which ones are better, and also understanding which units you should bring into your gameplay, not always using the same one for every single situation. Alright guys, this is Payne. Hope this video was helpful. Let me know if you have any questions, and we'll talk to that. Shout out to Prydwen again for putting this together. They're an incredible source for all Honkai Star Rail content, so if you have any questions, you can check out the site or shoot me a comment and I'll try to help you the best I can. Alright guys, we'll talk to you guys in the next one. Take care.